So we are going to be doing an occupational analysis on a client who is a student. We are going to be looking at her completing, writing out a to-do list for school. This falls under education with the subcategory of informal personal education. So the relevance and importance to this is that writing out the to-do list for school is relevant towards the client's educational occupation because it defines her goals and values within education. This prepares her for the upcoming week's assignments and readings that need to be completed. And this is important to her because it makes her feel reliable and accountable for the work that needs to be done. The environmental context is that she usually completes this when she is alone in a quiet room and typically has soft music playing in the background to push out any outside noises to help her limit distractions. And her personal factors that are influenced by her attitudes and beliefs about making these to-do lists because it forms her routine when doing schoolwork and also just part of her educational pattern that she uses. She also reported that it helps her calm down and focus on what she needs to do in order to complete all of the assignments. So we're gonna start to go through this video and look at some of the objects and space demands needed for this. So right away we can see that she is in a bedroom and has a desk with a chair, and the desk itself is a flat, hard surface. There is adequate lighting in here for her to be able to see what she is doing. And as we said before, that she did have soft music playing while doing this activity. Right here we can see that she starts to arrange her computer, notebooks, books, and folder on her desk in an appropriate manner that helps her complete this activity. And now we can also look at some of these objects. So we can see for equipment, we have her computer, her desk, and her chair. Supplies will be her pens that she'll be grabbing, her notebooks, and some tools would be her folder, her school books, as well as the AirPods that she is using to play music. And then some of the resources that went into all of this would be money, an online music store, and a technology store as well. There are no social demands seen in this occupational activity, because she is independently doing this in a room alone, and it is not a requirement as part of her role as a student or within her culture. So we are going to replay this again just to look at some of the sequencing that we see. So to start it off, she grabs her bag to set on the chair and uses both hands to zip it open and pull it apart. She then uses one hand to grab each book and notebook out of her bag and sets it on the table, and she'll repeat this till her bag is empty. Once everything's out of the bag, she sat down and begins to organize these objects on her desk. She uses both hands right here to open up her computer. She then grabs her notepad that she's going to use to write her to-do list in, and then grabs some more pens and markers, which are some supplies. She begins to navigate her computer to find her assignments and uses both hands to then open her notepad. She shifts her computer out of the way and sets her notepad in front of her, and then she reaches out to grab one of her markers. Once she's selected her marker, she uses both hands to open the cap and begins to write on her notepad some of the assignments that she needs to do. I am going to fast forward here until we can see her complete the to-do list. She uses both hands to rip out the paper. and we can see that she has completed this to-do list. So some of the body functions that we see going on here, there's a lot of specific mental functions, especially the higher level cognitive ones, such as executive functioning, mental flexibility, praxis and insight, because she is deciding her motor actions, motor planning. She knows her role as a student and what she needs to do for her capabilities, and she's also making these goals and decisions. For her attention, we see a lot of divided attention because she's using both motor skills for writing as well as cognitive skills for processing what assignments she is reading and understanding need to be done. She is sustaining her attention on completing this to-do list and also having some selective attention because she is pushing out background noise. For memory, there's a lot of working memory using the short-term memory of looking at her assignments on her computer, retaining that until she incorporates her long-term memory of her procedural writing skills and tactics for getting down information. And then for her perception, there's a lot of discrimination between tactile, visual, and auditory sensory information. She also has to have awareness of her proprioceptive senses as well. For thought, she has to focus on her logical thought, thinking, for understanding what is due, and kind of controlling her sense of reality as well, just to make everything coherent in her own head. For mental functions of sequencing complex movements, we can see there's a lot of coordinating going on with her gross motor movements of taking her objects out of her bag, and fine motor movements for writing and navigating her mouse pad on her computer. We don't see much emotional regulation in this video because she is doing this alone, but she is experiencing self in time because she is aware of her role as an identity as a student and what is required for her individual self. For some global mental functions, we are looking at consciousness as she is in a state of alertness. She's oriented to the time and place because this is important to understand the assignments that are due in relative to their due dates. There's no psychosocial interactions going on, and it's hard to tell her temperament or personality in this video. We can see that there has to be a level of energy, although we don't know what level is being portrayed, and there's also some motivation that is being used to complete this to-do list. For some sensory functions, for that visual aspect of it, we're looking at visual acuity for object discrimination. We're looking at light contrast, visual stability to stabilize everything that she can see in her environment, and also looking at that visual field just for her to be able to know and see whatever is in front of her. Some hearing is moderately challenged just because she does have that background noise of soft music playing to push out whatever distracting noises are going on outside. Vestibular function, she needs to maintain posture and keep her balance, especially against gravity when she is sitting down. And again, the proprioceptive functions of knowing what her upper body limbs are moving, how fast they are, and where they are. There is some sensitivity to pressure, especially when she is touching and grabbing her folders and books, using her pen, and also touching her mouse pad. Joint mobility and stability are both moderately challenged. The muscle power in terms of strength is needed when picking up her books and computer, and muscle tones needed to maintain that posture as well as keep the non-dominant side of her body just kind of ready to go. And then we do see some muscle endurance when it comes to writing out that to-do list. We can see the client is able to continuously write, and that is showing our muscle endurance. There's also a lot of control of voluntary movement, especially with hand-eye coordination as she's grabbing books, grabbing pencils, and coordinating everything with her vision. She's crossing the midline when she's reaching over to grab her pens, and there's a lot of fine motor skills that are being refined. Looking at the cardiovascular system, This is all minimally challenged because we're just keeping the homeostasis of the body, just the heart contractions, the blood pressure, breathing rate, and respiration cycles going. Nothing is being excessively stressed because she is seated in this activity. And then there's a lot of muscle groups going on, especially with the shoulder, with flexion, abduction, adduction, internal and external rotation. With the elbow, wrist, and thumb, we are seeing a lot of extension, flexion, supination and pronation with the wrist, as well as thumb and finger flexion, extension, abduction, and adduction when manipulating those smaller supplies. There is some trunk rotation when she is having to reach across her midline, and all of her lower body extremities are slightly used just to keep her seated in that chair. For the nervous system, all of our brain regions are being used, including the frontal lobe, the basal ganglion, the brainstem, cranial nerves, and the parasympathetic nervous system is engaged right here just to keep her in that resting state as she is not experiencing stressors. All of the structures of the eye are being used because she is having to take in all of her visual stimuli, as well as some structures of that inner ear just to keep her balanced with the semicircular canals. And then part of the cardiovascular system using the ventricles, arteries, veins, the heart to keep the blood flowing and regulated. And then the respiratory system also looking at the lungs, the thoracic cage, and the muscles of respiration too. And then all of the muscles, bones, ligaments, fascia, and muscles of the face, neck, shoulders, upper extremities, and torso are being used as well. And then some of those joints and muscles on the lower extremities just to keep that posture and balance sitting in that chair are being used. So looking at more of the performance skills that we see here, there's a lot of motor skills being used because she is reaching, gripping, manipulating, and coordinating. We are seeing a flow of skill. She looks like she is pacing herself, although we do not know if there was a time limit as she was completing this activity. And she is also kind of calibrating that force she's using while she is touching everything. For processing, there's a lot of skills being used because she is sequencing, she's initiating, showing continuation, organizing everything around her, navigating the objects and the use of them. And there are no social interaction skills because she is doing this alone. So after looking at this occupational analysis, there are a few questions that we did not have answered and that I have. One of them was if there was any reflexes used, because I don't see any, but there may have been some events going on in her environment that caused her to have those involuntary reflexes. And also I was wondering if there was any pain experienced during this that caused her to shift or impact how she was able to use her motor functions or move in a certain way. And we do know that there was some background noise going on, and my question would be if there was any distractibility going on she really had to tune out to focus in to do this activity. We also did not see the temperament or personality come through this video in particular, and so my question is, what type of personality does she have doing this activity that may incorporate to her self-control, her motivation, and those different elements. And then also just her energy levels too, if she was more tired on the day or if she was energized, because that can contribute to her motivation as well.